Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt's going to be teaching you how to play Come As You Are by Nirvana. So as you guys saw and heard, it's a really fun sounding arrangement, and I've got to say that it's going to be perfect for those of you who have been looking for a rock tune that's more rhythmic based. So as you saw, it's very strum heavy, so it's great for working on that style of playing. Now, with that said, I did get a chance to play through all of it, and I've got to say that it's not a super tough one to play. I'd say it's more so at the seasoned beginner budding into that intermediate level. Now, if you're wondering how I categorize the beginner, intermediate, and advanced player, you can click this link to find out and also see what each level should be working on before advancing to the next level. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this lesson really quick. So in this video, I should say, take two. In this video, you guys are going to be learning the entire arrangement. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, you can do so by clicking this link right here or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Come As You Are. Now, also on that page will be the on-screen tab viewer. So this is a really cool asset where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a really great tool for learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
Today we're going to learn a solo instrumental arrangement of Come As You Are, one of my all-time favorite hits from Nirvana. This song is really cool because it's got a very simple lick at the beginning, and honestly, if that's all you learn, you can be having a lot of fun. But the way that this arrangement works is going to utilize a lot of strumming, and so let's go ahead and dive into that intro, which is all picked, all with my thumb, and looks and sounds something like this. Right. So the way that we're going to start this is with a pickup bar. And a pickup bar essentially is not a full measure. It's going to just be count in to go with the song. So instead of being the full 4 beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you can see on the tab here, it's actually just 3/8 notes. So it's essentially just going to be and 4 and for the count. And to play that, what we're going to do is we're going to play open on the C string, and then open on the C string again, and then 1 on the C string using your index finger. So that's our count in, right? That's our pre-measure 1, our pickup bar. So let's go into measure 1 now. Measure 1, you're going to play 2 on the C string to start, which is your middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string. And then you're going to take your index finger and place it on the 1st fret of the E string and play that. Then the 2 on the C again. Notice how I'm just holding these fingers here, right? There's no reason to take them off and on because it's all set up. Then I'm going to play the 2 on the C again, 1 on the E again, 2 on the C again, 2 on the C again, then 1 on the C. And to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my index finger, move it up to the 1st fret of the C string from the E, and then I'm going to take my middle finger off of the 2 on the C, play that. So measure 1 by itself sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. But so that you can hear it, here it is with the pickup bar, which will make it sound a little bit more like the song. 1 and 2 and 3. Now going right into measure 2, we just take this index finger off, play the open C string, then take your ring finger, play it on the 3rd fret here of the E string, then play the open C again, and one more time. And then we're going to play the 3 on the E again, then open on the C, then 1 on the C with the index finger, and then this will actually repeat. But just so that we can hear it, here's what measure 2 sounds like in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. But at this point, it actually repeats back to measure 1. And it's going to play this a grand total of 4 times, which means we're going to play it once through and then repeat it 3 more times, which is a lot, but it's what this intro really wants. Now, it's important to note with that repeat, it repeats back to the beginning of measure 1. not to the pickup bar. And the reason for that is this 0, 1 picks it all back up to go back through, right? So here's what this should sound like. I'm going to play the pickup bar, measure 1, and then measure 2, and I'm going to repeat it 4 times, trying to make sure I do exactly 4. So it sounds something like this. 1 and 2 and 3. Now at this point, we've gone through it 4 times and we go on to the next section, or the melody B. Now, this intro is all that thumb picking and much easier to play than the rest of the song. So if you're struggling with this, you can feel free to look ahead, but work on this for a while before you move on. But if this has been too easy for you, well, it gets really fun here as we go on to melody B, measure 3. What we're going to do after we play that 1 on the C string, the very last note of measure 2, is we're going to then play a D minor chord. Now, the way that people normally play a D minor might look something like this, with their middle and ring and index fingers all engaged. And that's fine, but it doesn't work for this song. And so this is the first big hurdle with this tune, is getting comfortable with your 2-finger D minor. And this might feel impossible at first, but I promise you it is possible. The first time I saw it and tried it, I was like, who does this? And sure enough, now it's the only way I play it. So the trick to this is to take your middle finger and actually bar it across the G and the C strings. But the trick to this bar is you need to make sure that your E and your A strings are actually open. And so people try to do this, and they try to get the finger and it just doesn't get a good tone. And the reason is the trick is that you actually want to move your middle finger up. What I do is I kind of take the little pocket where my knuckle bends right there, and I sort of finagle my C string in there so that I can get a nice break angle so that my E and A strings can both be open. This alone, just doing that middle finger bar like this, takes a lot of practice and getting it right, but it's so much more efficient for when we're playing things. So that's the first thing to practice, is getting that middle finger again. Bringing it up can really help, trying to find that position. I really like to put the C string right into that divot there on my finger though. And then taking the index finger and placing it on the first fret of the E string. And what I like to do here is notice how this one is very perpendicular while this one's laying across with the bar. Once you can get this D minor though, it's a really, really nice way of playing the chord because it opens up the other fingers to do other stuff, which is going to be required in this particular song. So once you have that D minor down, we get to move on to playing this. It's all strumming. So you'll notice on the tab there are strum markers that are written here, right? Now those strum markers are really important to pay attention to know which direction you're going to go. You can see it here on the video with arrows, and on the tab it's using these little symbols. The 3/4 square is a downstroke and the little V is an upstroke, right? So we're going to start with the downstroke over our D minor chord using our index finger on our playing hand. We're going to do down. And then we're going to chunk. Now, if you don't know how to chunk, there's a video link down below. Please check that out. Really important that you have that technique comfortable because it's used throughout the song. So we have down, chunk, and then we're going to come up, and then we're going to do down again, and we're going to add our ring finger here to the 3rd fret of the A string. And then we're going to do another down, stretching our pinky up here to the 5 on the A. That's a big stretch. It's worth working on though. It's sort of like yoga for your fingers. If you can't get it quite now, it'll come with practice and with, consistency to that practice. But we're going to do a down on that D minor 2-2-1-5 just like that. So we have our D minor chord first, and then we're going to add the 3 for the D minor 7, and then add the 5 for the D minor chord again. And then we're going to, for the last chord of this, play a C6, which this is a big stretch, while the next chord, nice and simple, all open. We're going to do an up strum. So measure 3 should sound and look something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now as we go on to measure 4, it's going to stick with this sort of C6 all open. And you'll notice we're going to miss coming down. You'll notice on the tab that 0, 0, 0, 0 is tied with the little down marker. And this is really important because what you're going to want to make sure you do is miss the strings going down and let that note continue to ring from the up on the previous measure. And then we're going to do another up strum, all open, do another chunk, another up, all open. And then we're going to play 3 on the A string for a C chord. And with this, you can just play your ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the A string for a down strum. And then stretch your pinky up to 5 for the C add 9 chord, down. And then we're going to come up on the D minor chord again with those 2 fingers. So measure 4 should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and... And now measures 3 and 4 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now we're going right on to measure 5. And we're going to do the same thing to start measure 5. So we're going to miss on the down on a D minor. Then we're going to come up again on that same D minor chord. And then chunk, up, down on 3 on the A string, adding it to that D minor. Make it a D minor 7 that we played earlier. Then the pinky up on 5, and come up. And then we're going to do a chunk. And then this is my favorite part of the song. I just love how this sounds. You're going to take your middle and index fingers both off. And you're going to leave the pinky here at 5. Now you'll notice the chord that's written here is 0, 0, 0, 7. But there's a little slide marker on the 7. The reason for that is we're going to come up on the 5. And then we're going to slide that pinky into 7 for that new C chord. So it's chunk, up. And you'll see that as soon as I play the up, I'm going to slide that pinky up to 7 on the A. So measure 5 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now as we go on to measure 6, same deal with the miss to start. So we miss going down here. Then we're going to come up on 7, chunk, up on 7 again. Then we're going to go down to 5. And what I like to do for this 5 is I like to actually bring my pinky down to the 5. So kind of sliding it back down after it just slid up, right? So we have... And then we're going to do another down on 0, 0, 0, 3. I like to use my ring finger here on this 3. And the reason is the up strum right here at the end of measure 6 needs to be back to that D minor. So by using your ring finger here on this 3, it kind of sets up these 2 fingers to come on that up strum, right? So measure 6 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now so that you can hear it, here is measures 5 and 6 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now we go on to measure 7 from here. And what's cool is it becomes more of the same sort of stuff. In fact, measure 7 is exactly the same as measure 3 except for one difference. And that's the very first note is going to be different, and the first beat really. And other than that, it's going to be the same. So instead of doing down chunk, which is what we did with measure 3, we're instead going to miss on the down, come up, and then do a chunk. And then it's all the same. And this is just so that we have that melody existing on the offbeats of the previous measure. It's what gives this song its sort of groove and vibe. So measure 7, we're at this D minor from before, and we're going to miss and then come up, chunk, and then up, down on the 3 on the A, and then down on the 5 of the A, and then up all open. So again, outside of the first beat, exactly the same as measure 3. Should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now as we go on to measure 8 is exactly in every single way identical to measure 4. So it's going to be missing the strings, coming up all open, chunk, up all open again, then down on the 3, and then down on the 5, and then up on the 2-2-1-0 D minor chord. Exactly the same in every single way as measure 4. Pretty cool, right? So measure 4 and 8 are the same, much like measure 3 and 7 were similar. So measure 8 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, as we go on to measure 9 at this point, measure 9 is going to be exactly the same as measure 5. It's exactly identical. So we're going to go with our D minor that we're still holding here. We're going to do the miss, up, chunk, up, down, and then up, just the same way, adding the 3 and the 5. And then we're going to do our chunk, followed by the up on the 5A, slide into 7. It's exactly the same. How cool is that? So it sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then from here, measure 10 is exactly the same as measure 6. Exactly identical. No difference whatsoever. So we're coming up on the 7, chunk, another up on the 7, down on the 5, sliding the pinky down, and then down on the 3 with the ring finger, followed by an up with that 2-2-1-0 D minor chord. So measure 10 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So how cool is that, right? It's exactly the same stuff. And then from this point, it repeats back to measure 7. And it plays 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then it repeats another time, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So it plays it a total of 3 times. And if you think about how measure 3 and 4 are actually 3, 4, 5, and 6, are very similar to 7, 8, 9, and 10. It's basically 4 total run-throughs. The only difference is measure 3 is a little bit different to start with that first down strum. It's basically playing the same thing, a grand total of 4 times, where we have the first run-through, 5, 6, 7, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can count, I swear. And then we repeat it to 7, 8, 9, 10. That's played 3 times. So let's go ahead and hear what this sounds like so that we can hear this whole second melody section being played. So I'm going to start at measure 3. I'm going to play 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But then at the end of 10, I'm going to repeat back to measure 7 and play 7, 8, 9, 10, and then do that again for that third repeat. And that creates that whole melody B section. So let's go ahead and hear what this sounds like. Try to get through it. Starting with measure 3. Should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Last repeat. Now, at this point, we go on to measure 11, which is going to be the third melody part. Now, measure 11 is going to start off the same way we've been playing pretty much all the other parts, with that D minor, just holding it and missing. And then we're going to do an up, chunk, up, down. Now, that's all the same chord that's being played, but then we're going to play a D sus4 chord. So what we're going to do is, with that D minor, we're just going to add the ring finger here to the 3rd fret of the E string and do an up. And then we're going to do a down with that finger back off for a normal D minor. And then we're going to play an up on an F chord. So all that you do for that F chord is take your middle finger off and put it back on just the 2nd fret of the G string. And an up strum there. So measure 11 sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going right into measure 12, it's going to continue with that F chord, and we're going to do a miss to start, and then up, chunk, up, down. Pretty straightforward. Then we're going to add this F1 chord, a second version of F. All that we do is add our ring finger here to the 3rd fret of the A string and do a down. And then on the up strum after this, we're going to come back up on a D minor. So measure 12 sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now as we go on to measure 13 is actually going to be the same as measure 11. It's exactly identical in every way, which is pretty neat. I love these repeats because you learn it once and you've learned it many times. So measure 3 is just like measure 11. And then measure 14, well, it's actually exactly the same as measure 12. So we're going to play it something like. And then as you go on to 15, hey, guess what? Exactly the same as measure 11 and measure 13. And then measure 16, it's exactly the same as measure 14 and 12. Pretty neat, right? And then as we go on to 17 is exactly the same as 15, 13, and 11. They're all the same. And then measure 18, we get just a little bit different. We start the same. We're going to have our up, chunk, up, down, which is exactly the same, but then it changes. So let's take just a moment before we go on to that change, and let's just hear what this whole section should sound like. Starting with measure 11 and 12. And remember, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, it's all the same. 11 and 12 is the same as 13 and 14, so on and so forth. So it should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Remember, at the end of 18, it's a little different. So instead of at the end of 18 doing the down up, or the down up that we did before, we're going to start the riff again. And we're going to play open on the C twice, and then 1 on the C. And that is actually exactly the same as our pickup bar as it goes into the intro. And so just measure 18 so that you can hear it. It should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now here's what's cool. Measure 19, this begins the outro. And there's nothing new until the very last measure of the whole song at this point. Playing measure 19 is exactly the same as measure 1. And then measure 20 is exactly the same as measure 2. And it's going to repeat 4 times, just like the intro did. No difference whatsoever. once you've gone through that the 4 times and you go on to measure 21, it is exactly the same as measure 3. In fact, measures 21, 22, 23, 24 are exactly the same as 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's pretty neat, right? So that's going to sound something like this, starting at 21, 2 and 3 and 4 and... Now, that's all exactly the same. Really cool, right? But then as we go on to 25, this is finally something a little different, and it's really simple. Measure 25, you're still holding that up strum from before on the D minor, and you're going to hold this for 1 and 2 and what you're going to do is you're going to finish this song with this sort of up, down, up that creates this really nice sound. And so we're going to hold it for 1 and 2 and 3, and then on the and of 3, we're going to come up. On 4, we're going to go down. And then on and, we're going to come up again. So that looks something like this, where we play this on the and of 4 from the previous bar. And then 1 and 2 and 3. And that ends the song, which is pretty cool. Now, you'll notice we don't actually do the bridge of the song. The reason for that is it didn't translate quite very well, and the song ended up sounding really good just with these parts played. So if you'd like to figure out a way to play the bridge or whatever else, feel free to try or leave some comments down below and we'll see what we can do. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson and playing this song. I grew up listening to this tune a lot. In fact, I could play this on the guitar and that was it in about 6th grade before I really picked up the ukulele. But anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys next time on the next tutorial here on Rock Class 101. Thanks so much.
Alright guys, so this lesson was a ton of fun. This is a great song by Nirvana, and it doubled as not just being a fun one to play, but also a great study for working on your rhythmic skills, so your strumming skills and incorporating chord melody into strumming, playing, just a lot of fun in that regard. So I do want to remind you, if you want to get the tabs to print Keep for Your Records, you can do so by clicking this link right here, or going to the site rockclass101.com, doing a search for Come As You Are. And don't forget too, on that page is the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer, so you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.